Biology Semester 2, Activity 3.5.2, which is the inheritance letter. And the letter just says, write a letter to your parents explaining how you received your genes. Use the information from the unit's text and videos and try to explain to your parents why you look the way you do. So it says you must include the following information. Describe which traits you think you inherited from your parents and an explanation of how you got them from genes. What are dominant traits in your family? Define the word gene and chromosome so that your parents will understand them. Describe how many genes and chromosomes can be found in the human body and how they influence your physical appearance and other traits. Imagine other traits you could have received from your parents. Maybe your father has brown hair and your mother has red hair and you have brown hair. Explain to the best of your abilities why you have a certain hair color or other trait from your parents, but not others they may exhibit. And then if you have siblings, explain why you do not look identical. If you do not have siblings, explain why siblings are not identical. So this is the assignment. So I wanted to start it off by showing a video. Well, let's see if I can get it on the video I want. Okay, this is what I want on. Okay, so I'm going to start off by playing this little video.
Welcome to Moo Moo Math and Science. In this video, I'd like to talk about traits. What are traits? Traits are characteristics or features that can be passed from one generation to another. Some examples include hair color, height, skin color, or gender. With dogs, it could be long tails versus short tails, ears or short ears, or maybe even the shape of the nose. Each of these factors can be passed genetically to another generation. There are different forms of the same trait. In this next video, notice the different shapes of the noses. These would be examples of alleles because they are different forms of the same trait. It can also be dominant or recessive. Each individual has two alleles for each gene, one coming from each female and the other from the male. With dominant traits, an individual carries two dominant genes, or one dominant and one recessive gene. The dominant gene can be expressed even if only one copy of the gene is present. Recessive trait will be expressed if the individual has two recessive alleles. In this example, the purple color is dominant over the white color. In summary, a trait is a feature that can be passed from one generation to the next. Thank you for watching. Moo Moo Math and Science uploads a new math or science video every.
Okay. Oh, did I get somebody? No. Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to keep on going, even though we do not have anybody on. But before we got started on actually going through the lesson, I want to click on something. Sorry. Okay, we're on that. Let me find it. Okay, so we are humans, their genetics are just so complicated, but there are some physical traits that we can tell pretty quickly based off of your parents, and these are some fun ones that I always like to go through. I wish there was people on so we could actually go through and see this and get some data, but we're gonna go ahead and roll with the punches here. So everybody has, of course, earlobes, but some people have attached earlobes, and some people have free hanging earlobes. So I don't know if you can feel yours. And I'm going to talk about whether they're dominant or recessive in a minute. Dimples, that people either have dimples that are present or they have absent dimples. Chin is another one. We have cleft chin or no cleft chin. Hairline, we have people either have a straight hairline or they have this little peak in there, which is a widow's peak. If you look right below your fingernails, right below that first knuckle, you either have hair follicles there that are present or you do not. And then your thumb, when you put it up, it's either going to bend back like a hitchhiker's thumb or it's going to be straight. So if we had people in here in this lesson, we would go ahead and get data from everybody and then add it up and we'd be able to see the frequency. But since we do not, did we have somebody come in? Oh, hi, Michelle. Welcome to the session. I'm going through biology semester 2, 3.5.2 activity. So I was just talking about different traits. I'll show you the picture again. We were talking about whether people have attached earlobes or free, present dimples or absent, cleft chin or no cleft, straight or widow's peak, present or absent finger hair, and then straight thumb or a hitchhiker's thumb. And then we're talking about traits that we receive from our parents and then how that affects us. So having a free earlobe that's not attached is actually dominant. So if you see your parents, if you have that and your parents have that, or your parents both have it, you for sure are going to have a free earlobe. If both of them have attached, then you will have attached because it'll have two recessive forms. Dimples, most of the time, if you have a parent that has dimples, you're probably going to have dimples as well because it is dominant. Cleft, present, that's when you have a little indentation again on your chin. So people that have that, parents that have that, usually they have kids that have that as well. Again, it is dominant. Widow's peak, if you have a parent or both parents that have a widow's peak in their hairline, you're going to have a widow's peak hairline as well. Finger hair is dominant, so one or two parents that have that, you probably are going to have that as well. And then straight thumb is dominant over hitchhiker's thumb. Let's see. Hi, I'm Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Thank you for joining. Oh, and then thank you, Rachel, for joining. So again, we're going through the different types of traits that are simple to track in humans. And we're just talking about the dominant and recessive form. So again, straight thumb is dominant to hitchhiker's thumb. So if you were to hold up your thumb, if it goes back, that is actually recessive. And if it's just straight up, that would be dominant, like in the picture right here. So straight is dominant to hitchhikers. Again, if we had multiple people in here, we could just get a list of everybody's dominant and recessive, what they have, and then we could add up the frequency of the traits, and then we could determine the dominant or the recessive form. But we are going to just keep on rolling because we don't have that many people, but that's okay. This can help everybody when they go through it. So the letter says, which traits do you think you inherited from your parents? And an explanation of how you got them from genes. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my camera. So obviously, sorry, I'm in my room because I'm kicked out of every other room because we're on Thanksgiving break, so don't mind that. But some of my traits that I have that I got from my parents both have blue eyes, so I have blue eyes as well. Blue eyes, there's actually like 36 genes that go into making a specific eye color in a human, so it's very complicated. But if you were to bring it down to very uncomplicated, because both of them have light-colored eyes, I'm going to have light-colored eyes as well because they're both recessive. Also have blondish hair that I got from my parents. Light skin color, my height. Both my parents are tall. I'm tall. Lots of things like that that I got from my parents. So that's just a little bit about my inheritance. Do either of you want to share anything that you, a particular trait that you inherited from your parents? Let's see here. Okay, left-handed. Rachel, that is awesome. So are both of your parents left-handed or just one? Yes, both. Okay, yeah. So that's very common that if they're both left-handed. Oh, wow. And your three siblings are all right-handed. That is amazing. I love genetics so much. You're not the odd one. You're the cool one. I think left-handed people are so awesome. I'm not. But my husband is actually very interesting because he is what a true ambidextrous, they call it. He eats and writes left-handed, but does everything with sports or right-handed. He eats and writes left-handed, but does anything with sports like throwing, catching, right-handed. It's weird. Curly hair, Michelle. Okay, me too. I got curly hair from my dad. My dad has curly hair, and I have it as well. It's dominant. Do both of your parents have curly hair, or just one of you, or one of your parents? Both. Yep. So you're definitely going to have curly hair. That's awesome. Curly hair is so fun sometimes and sometimes kind of crazy. But I have curly hair and my daughter has curly hair too. All my kids do. So we all have curly hair as well. So I know all about that. All right. Well, let's keep moving on. Thank you guys so much for your responses. So it says, so how did we get these? So dominant versus recessive. Like I was showing in there, someone's going to say something else. Let's see. Oh, sometimes it's a pain too. Yes, Michelle, it is a pain sometimes. I know all too well that curly hair can be crazy. Some of my friends with straight hair, I'm like, you have no idea how lucky you have it. But they say the same thing to me. So double-edged sword. Okay. So it says, what are dominant traits in your family? So obviously in Rachel's family, left-handedness is dominant, even though her siblings all are right-handed. In Michelle's family, curly hair is dominant. In my family, curly hair again. I would say height, because all of my family members are right at 6 foot or above, including me. So we're all pretty tall people. So those are all things that are dominant in our families. Different families have different dominant traits. But we all know that like dark eyes and dark hair color and dark features are all going to be dominant over like light colored eyes, light colored skin, light colored hair. So if you have one parent that has like really, really blonde hair and one parent that has like really, really dark hair, you're probably somewhere in between, if not on the darker side of hair color, because darker genes are more dominant than lighter. All right, so let's go down to the next one. How many genes and chromosomes can be found in your body? So that is a cool thing. So each one of us, we all have 46 chromosomes in our body, and we all have 2 copies of each one. So I have 2 number 1 chromosomes, 2 number 2 chromosomes, 2 number 3 chromosomes, et cetera, et cetera. And where this matters is, like, I don't know if you've heard of Down syndrome or different things like that. We call Down syndrome a trisomy 21, which means that we have, instead of the 2 chromosomes that we're supposed to have for 21, we actually have 3. Tri means 3, somy is for the chromosome. So we have a 3 chromosome on the 21st, and that causes the genetic disorder called Down syndrome. So there's different things that our chromosomes are important for, and there are different genes that are carried on different chromosomes. There's different disorders, chromosomes. If we're a female, we have 2 X chromosomes. If we're a male, we have an X and a Y. And there are certain things that are carried on the X chromosome. Oh, we got a new person. Let's see who it is. Hi, Maddie. Welcome. We're going through biology semester 2, 3.5.2, and Lulu, welcome. We're just going through and talking about genetic traits and things like that. So welcome. And if you have any questions, go ahead and chime in, or you can always just write in the chat box as well. All right. So we have 46. And how do they influence your physical appearance and other traits? So like I said, if you have an extra 21st chromosome, that would influence you as you would have Down syndrome. Or there's an like triple X syndrome. That's women that have an extra X chromosome, and that causes a genetic disorder where you are sterile and you have some other abnormalities in your physical appearance as well. So chromosomes have a lot to do with your physical appearance, and different genes can be found on different ones. So it says, imagine other traits you could have received from your parents. Maybe your father has brown hair and your mother has red hair and you have brown hair. Explain to the best of your abilities why you have a certain hair color or other trait from your parents, but not others they may exhibit. So for example, my father has brown hair and my mother has blonde hair, and I kind of have like an in-between colored hair. So in this case for me, how would I explain this? Well, brown is dominant over blonde. So that's why I don't have like a true blonde color, even though when I was born, when I was little, my hair was white and it literally looked like I had a cauliflower on my head because it's curly too. So, but as I've gotten older, it's gotten darker. So brown is dominant to blonde. And then there are so many different genes that go into your specific hair color, texture, everything with hair, that it's not going to be just, brown or blonde. There's so many in between. If you were to look at a room full of people and look at all their hair colors, you probably wouldn't find too many people with the exact same color of hair. Anybody that just joined in, does anybody want to share? Lulu, it looks like you're still with us. Do you want to share any trait that's in your family that your parents have that maybe you have or you do not have? You can write it in the chat message too, if you're there. Oh, Michelle H is back. Michelle, if you would like to tell us, you can say it out loud or in the chat message. Is there any physical appearance that your mother or father has that you have or do not have, something that stands out that you would want to share with us? For example, Michelle talked about her parents having curly hair, and she does. And then Rachel talked about her parents both are left-handed, and she's left-handed, but her 3 siblings are all right-handed. Is there anything that stands out to you in your genetics? My hair and my mom's hair are different, Lulu said. Okay, good. So how are they different? I'm just curious if you want to elaborate on that. Again, hair texture, and it says I'm the same, Michelle, with the curly hair, right? So Michelle, we talked about both of her parents have curly hair and she got curly hair. So Michelle, you don't happen to have any siblings that don't have curly hair, do you? Okay, so your brother does not have curly hair. See, that's just so interesting to me. We're going to talk about siblings here next. If Michelle or Lulu don't have anything else to add, we'll go ahead and move on to that. So, okay, so the next question, let's go back to here. I don't know why I still had that on. Okay, so the next question is, if you have siblings, explain why you do not look, we got a chat here. Lulu says I have long, straight, and hers is very thin and doesn't have as much as I do. So yeah, as much hair, that's another thing. Some people have a ton of hair and some people have very thin hair. So I wonder if your mother used to have thicker hair and it's just thinned out as she has gotten older, or has she always had just very thin hair? And then does your father have thicker hair as well? Okay, so we're going to talk about siblings now. So it says, if you have siblings, explain why you do not look identical. If you do not have siblings, explain why siblings are not identical. So, um, always has, I'm not sure about my dad. Okay, cool. All right, so does anybody in here have like a full sister or well, I think we're all girls here. Does anybody in here have a full sister? I do not. So, okay, Lulu does. All right, so Lulu, do you and your okay, Rachel has two full sisters. That's awesome. I only have brothers, so it's hard for me to compare this, but so why do you not look identical? Does anybody know the reason why? No. Okay. So, um we have two different processes that cause genetic variation. Um we have this thing called independent assortment, and that occurs during mitosis or meiosis, and that is like how our chromosomes line up in the middle during metaphase, which is a phase of mitosis and meiosis. And the way it does it is I mean, look alike, but we're not twins, Michelle said. That's awesome. So that's really common too. I look like one of my brothers too. Um, so basically what happens is the way that they line up, the chromosomes line up, is random. And it's different every time. So it causes the genetic variation. So every time that our chromosomes go through meiosis or mitosis, our it's going to line up differently, and there's a million different combinations. So yes, they're both coming from the same genes, like we're getting 50% from mom and 50% from dad, but they are getting mixed up in the way that they are going to be shown. So some of us may show a lot of our mothers or a lot of our fathers. It doesn't mean you don't have the other persons. They're just not going to be shown as much, if that makes sense. Also, there's another process called crossing over, which is where literally our chromosomes cross over, and we don't get to pick where this occurs, and it also causes genetic variation. So genetic variation is super important because the more diverse our gene pool is, the less likely that we're going to have genetic disorders. You do not want two gene pools coming together that are very similar. That's why we talk about like you would not want to have children with like someone that you are biologically related to, because you have too similar of genes and it's hard to mix them up. So I, again, do not have a sibling that is the same sex as me, but I do have two boys that look identical. They're starting to look a little bit different now. One's 5 and one's 2. But when they were born, we could not tell their baby pictures apart. People joke with me all the time that they said, I don't know why you wasted having another one. They look just the same, like the same kid. So it's actually kind of funny how sometimes kids look really similar and sometimes kids look extremely different. Or like in my family, I have 2 older brothers, but I look a lot like one of them, and the other one looks like exactly like my dad. And me and my other one kind of look like a good mixture. So genetics are very interesting, and it just depends on how much variation occurs and where the chromosomes cross over and how they line up. I hope that this was interesting for you all. I just think genetics is awesome. So when you're writing this letter, just go ahead and hit on all of these points that we talked about. And it's really just kind of a way for you to express your traits and your parents' traits, and talk about how you received your genes. Okay, so now that we've gone through that, do any of you all have any questions for me? It could be on this activity, or it could be on anything in biology, semester 1, quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, semester 2, etc., or anything in earth science. I'm available for question and answer if anybody has one. And again, you can say it out loud, or you can just write it in the chat box. I'll wait for a few minutes or a minute or so and see if anybody's typing. All right, it looks like I'm not going to get any questions, and that's perfectly fine. That actually, hopefully that means you guys all understood this lesson. If you were not on at the beginning, I showed a cool little video about traits, and I will go ahead and send the link out. And then also I went through genetic traits that are easy to track in humans, such as like, I didn't answer all the, okay, Michelle, I will write you back in a second here, just 1 second. But I went through all the different things like straight hairline versus widow's peak and etc. And I went through and I talked about inheritance of those specific traits. So I went ahead and did that. But so go ahead and look through that if you are having some trouble with this assignment. And if not, I appreciate you guys coming to this session. And thank you so much for responding in the chat messages. I think it went really well. And again, please feel free to reach out to me via email or chat, whatever one is best for you. And I'm here to help you. And I hope you all have a nice Thanksgiving tomorrow. Goodbye.